That the New Bell Central Prison today decried congestion at the incarceration center. We'll tell you more in this edition of the news. And at a time women across the world are making last-minute preparations ahead of the International Day for the Rights of the Woman, some female MPs are denouncing the numerous scandals reported in Cameroon, lately ranging from brutal killings of civilians to random embezzlement of public funds. Viewers, those are our major stories. Stay with us for details and more. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you for always according us your time every evening for the news in the English language. Ahead of the International Day for the Rights of the Woman to be celebrated or observed tomorrow across the national territory and also across the world, ahead of tomorrow's activities, we are going to be talking about two women who have distinguished themselves at high leadership positions of recent. Both of them presided at the opening of the March session of the upper and lower houses of Cameroon's parliament. Babila Jonathan now tells us more about Honorable Fego Laurentine and Senator Isabel, who have been denouncing the numerous scandals reported lately in Cameroon.
Two names, two women, two leaders, two high institutions of the Republic, and two remarkable statements that triggered debate. First, the oldest member of Cameroon's lower house of parliament, Honorable Fego Laurentine. At the opening of the March 2023 session of Parliament, she got many thinking and talking when she engaged in a reading of what she called scandals of the Republic. She cited the Olembe Sports Complex construction embezzlement scandal, the COVID-19 funds embezzlement scandal, the Yaoundé dual carriage highway construction indemnity payment scandal, budget lines 94 and 65 management scandal, and the assassination of Bishop Benoit Bala and journalist Martinez Zogo, and others. Expressing condemnation, Honorable Fego Laurentine said Cameroon must not turn into a land of scandals. She calls on managers of public funds to demonstrate more patriotism and moral rectitude. Honorable Laurentine, former mayor of Soua municipality in the Mefu and Afamba division, Central region of Cameroon, is the wife of the late Minister of Health, Joseph Mbedi. In the upper house of parliament, oldest member, Senator Isabel Marine Jole Asuo Tokpanu, took to the front stage during the opening of the first parliamentary session of the year, calling on her peers to continue performing their duties fully despite the campaigns for the March 25th senatorial election. She went further to raise concerns about the wrong usage of social media and networks to the disadvantage of the nation. Before her election as one of the pioneer senators of Cameroon in 2013 on the ticket of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement (CPDM) political party, she was a secondary school teacher and assistant university lecturer in Benin, Ivory Coast, France, and her home country Cameroon. The Knight of the National Order of Valor also served as Secretary of State No. 2 at the then Ministry of National Education and chairperson of the Board of Directors of the Yaoundé Conference Center. Both women, or better still mothers, strongly condemned the multiple ills plaguing the Cameroonian society and playing down on the peace, stability, growth and well-being of the country and our people, and called for action by all to remedy the situation.
And now, still talking about activities to commemorate the International Day for the Rights of the Woman that will be tomorrow in Melong in the Mongo Division, the women have been told to make good use of social media platforms responsibly. The call was made by the divisional officer for Melong, Biko Alain Blaise, as he launched activities for the International Women's Day. Explain more the problems they face, more with Semantic and Gabriel.
I don't have no work. Just look how the house is dry. Then the women's rapper Maybe 2 years ago, it cost 6,500. Now it's 13,000 francs. So, customer don't have money to buy the material also.
As a result of being to mark this year's celebration of the International Women's Day in Melom, Mongo division of the littoral region, these women say the hardship is having a negative impact on them.
Nowadays things are very hard. Some women are always struggling to earn a living now. We don't do it as we used to do it because we had the anxiety at first to do it to maintain our dignity as a woman. But nowadays some women want to do it, but they don't have the means, especially transportation, or as somebody like me I'm doing transformation, I don't have the means to transform those things. So it becomes very difficult.
At the occasion, the divisional officer of Melom, Biko Alain Bless, told the women to make good use of the social media platform. We've urged the women to make use of the social media responsibly and ask them to profit from the advantages one can get from social media to expose their products. The 38th edition of the International Women's Day will be celebrated under the theme Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality.
And now, while many Cameroonians, especially women, strive to be financially viable by independently engaging in the production of Cameroonian-made finished products or goods amidst diverse challenges, experts suggest they get into savings. This way, they can finance and also transport their raw material from the farms to the markets. Let's now have more with Innocent Aze.
The transformation of local products to derive a variety of finished goods, commonly referred to as Cameroonian-made, to discourage the high expenditure usually associated with importation, is what is today developing Cameroonians and their society. Difficulties, however, accompany this laudable initiative. Transporting the raw material to produce this liquor of ours from the farm to town is expensive, given the increase in the cost of transportation.
Avec l'augmentation des prix du carburant, aussi ils augmentent le prix du kilo de café.
Lack of finance, packaging are some of the challenges they face, especially when independent. Some experts believe these blocks limiting growth could be crossed through the formation of a veritable cooperative.
Our responsibility is to help organize and structure cooperatives through which the development of our country can come. Because we are a country that is made up of mostly farmers, farmers constitute about 80%, and their activities are around production. So when they come to the cooperative, it is an opportunity for them to work together, carry out their activities together, purchase inputs together, and even get training together and organize themselves together.
Coming together as a cooperative like that of Santa being set up in the northwest region, Cameroonians, irrespective of their backgrounds, can reap their desired goals.
I've learned today how we can do food transformation. The transformation unit for now will be in Santa in the northwest region, but it's not something regional. It's for the whole country. So if you have your products like cassava, you have even sweet potatoes, Irish potatoes in a very big quantity, we could always do the food transformation or see how to fund you.
At the same time, we try to align ourselves to the government policy of import substitution. The government today believes that and wants to encourage Cameroonians to produce what we used to import. So we decided to put this cooperative in place so that we can be able to help our farmers change their mentality to understand that they can gain much from their products, that their produce can be transformed and they will make more money from it.
This cooperative, according to its promoters, will aid farmers dealing in perishable goods in terms of conservation.
Post-harvest loss, which were registered in our area, where farmers produce vegetables and most of it get rotten before they get to the market, we think that we can help them by putting in place infrastructure that can conserve and protect their vegetables and take them to the market. Initially, we had it as a Santa cooperative, but we soon discovered that it will be given the vision, the broad vision which we have to industrialize.
Industrialization, which will see the involvement of every development-oriented and supportive Cameroonians.
And now one of our lead stories, we talk about the commemoration of Lawyers Week in Cameroon. Some legal minds of the Cameroon Bar Association visited the Douala Central Prison. During their visits, the legal minds, among other challenges faced by the inmates, they talked about the congestion of the prison cells. Let's now have more with Lucy Liengu is here.
According to Barrister Charlotte Chakunte, one of the greatest challenges those in prison in Cameroon face is the problem of illegal detention.
Some of them have been to the court one time and they just not remove them again. They are just there. Some of them have been judged since long time. They have spent the normal time that we were supposed to spend in the prison, but they are there because the court did not send the paper to prove that they have no right to keep them in the prison again. So it's what we call in French dysfonctionnement de la justice.
Another worry raised by Barrister Chakunte is prisoners in Cameroon do not have access to adequate health care.
Those who are sick and that the Lakentino hospital cannot help again, because usually it's that hospital who used to treat those who are sick. But since about 5 or 6 months, Lakentino hospital does not want to continue, saying that each of them must bring some money, whether they don't even have what to eat. They are not able to eat normally.
Commemorating Lawyers Week in Cameroon, some legal minds of the Cameroon Bar Association visited the Douala Central Prison.
We are going to do is to take care of mad people who are there, because there are so many men like women. There are more than 56 persons mad inside. They don't even know where they are. So I'm sure that after these 3 days of consultation, we are going to do something to remove them from there.
During the visit, the inmates were encouraged and the lawyers promised to review their files in line with the dispositions of the criminal code in order to help those whose procedures might have been violated.
56 mad people in prison. That is somehow alarming. And now something else, but still talking about legal issues. Any crime committed on the internet is liable to the legal dispositions in force in Cameroon. Hence, a responsible use of the social media is paramount, especially to the woman. This was the key message at the symposium in the Faculty of Law and Political Sciences of the University of Douala. The event that comes in prelude to the International Women's Day was organized by female staff of the faculty in the University of Douala. Let's now have more with for me and from Sanda.
Amble and latitude to make maximum economic and social exploitation of the internet in an increasing digitalized world is not gender biased. However, the negative fallout tend to be more on women than on men, according to experts.
Women are most vulnerable. As far as digital is concerned, it's quite easy for a woman, a lady, to jump into bad affairs in the digital. And our main target was to help them to be more responsible as far as the digital is concerned.
With the growing opportunities and possibilities to put themselves and products online, internet content creators have multiplied with little or no knowledge on the legal dispositions regulating their activity. A veritable challenge for content creators, especially the female folks.
The women at this Faculty of Law and Political Sciences have decided to perform in order to unveil cyber attacks and, of course, legal means of defense for the victims. That means every offender relative to cyber attacks must be sanctioned according to the law in force in this country.
It was within this context and the need to empower women within the digital space that female staff of the Faculty of Law and Political Science of the University of Douala organized sketches in the form of debate and legal procedures to transfer knowledge.
Within the framework of this activity that you've just enjoyed, the focal theme for this Faculty of Law and Political Sciences was focused on human rights in the digital age. Within the framework of a mock trial, I would like to remind every Cameroonian around the world that everything they say, they do throughout social networks. One of them is offender. The law in force is going to be applied.
This was done as part of activities marking the 2023 edition of the International Women's Day.
And now, viewers, we take you out of our national frontiers. The World Bank is pausing talks over its future engagement with Tunisia following anti-migrants or migrants' comments made by the Tunisian President Kais Saied, a situation which brought fear to many Africans living in Tunisia and whose wishes are to return to their various countries of origin. Details with Mala Glory.
In a message, the bank's outgoing president, David Malpass, said Said's tirade had triggered racially motivated harassment and even violence, and that the institution had postponed a planned meeting with Tunisia until further notice. According to Malpass, the management has decided to purge the country's partnership framework and withdraw it from board review. Hundreds of migrants have flown home from Tunisia, fearful of a wave of violence since the president's remarks. Last month, Said ordered officials to take urgent measures to tackle irregular migration, claiming without evidence that a criminal plot was on the way to change Tunisia's demographic makeup. He claimed that migrants were behind most crime in the North African country, fueling a spate of sackings, evictions and attacks. The African Union had expressed deep shock and concern at Said's remark, and government in sub-Saharan Africa have scrambled to bring home hundreds of frightened nationals who flocked to their embassy for help. A situation which caused panic especially for Cameroonians living in this country, and which led to political leaders calling on the Cameroonian government to react for the large number of Cameroon living in Tunisia. The Cameroonian embassy in Tunisia thus published a release calling on persons of Cameroonian origin to respect the laws of the country, and for those wishing to return home to approach the embassy in Tunisia.
And now, still out of Cameroon, French President Emmanuel Macron ended his tour of some Central African countries in a diplomatic drive to test a new relationship with the continent as anti-French sentiments run high in some former French colonies. He was in Gabon, Angola, Congo-Brazzaville and the DRC, where he had talks with the country's president. Let's now have more in this report.
The French President Emmanuel Macron arrived at the Democratic Republic of Congo in the grip of a rebellion in its eastern part, warning it must not become the spoil of war. Macron announced that France will release an immediate contribution of 34 million euros in humanitarian aid to cover the immediate needs of the local population in terms of food, health care and sanitation. The air bridge will link with Ngoma, the capital of the Democratic Republic of Congo, eastern North Kivu province, where fighting with the rebel group M23 has displaced more than 600 people. France has previously joined the United Nations, Congo and other countries in accusing Rwanda of supporting the M23, but Macron was asked during a news conference in Kinshasa to condemn Rwanda. Libreville, Rwanda, Brazzaville, Kinshasa. French President Emmanuel Macron ends his tour of Africa as he tries to shift French policy on the continent away from military involvement. This is his 18th presidential trip to Africa. It comes at a time of ever-increasing competition from China, Russia and other growing resentment of the close economic ties between France and its former colonies, which some sees it as a continued exploitation. Macron also aims at reorienting French support to focus more on training and technical backup for African armed forces. Meantime, there have been an anti-French demonstration in the Democratic Republic of Congo ahead of his visit. Furthermore, opponents of Gabon's president Ali Bongo Ondimba and Democratic Republic of Congo's president Felix Tshisekedi have been complaining that Macron's visit could be read as interference to bolster the image of these incumbent rulers in what is an election year for both countries.
And dear viewers, that was it for the first part of the news. Thank you for being there, but don't go away. Talking Points comes up in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back, viewers. On Talking Points tonight, we will be talking about the visit of the French President Emmanuel Macron to some French-speaking countries or some Francophone African countries. And our guest tonight is Edmond Kouyaté. You are of the civil society and you are, to be more precise, an economist. Edmond Kouyaté, thank you so much for accepting to be our guest on Talking Point tonight. We might want to know from you first, in what context did the French President Emmanuel Macron, in what context did he come to Africa, to some French-speaking countries? Because he just ended his visit to some 4 Francophone African countries lately, that was yesterday. So in what context, can you tell us, in what context was he in Africa?
Well, the visit of Emmanuel Macron to some, to some countries in Africa intervene in a context, in a particular context. The context is the French, what they call anti-French France sentiment in Africa. You know, most of the African countries now are having problem with France. So most of them, they do not need the presence of France anymore. And this is one. And the second thing is that if you realize France has almost lost all the influence they had in Africa, in most countries in Africa. The segment of the market where France was having like grip on it, today is gone. So if you go 3 years, if you move 3 years back from now, France was having like 25% of the market in Africa. Today is less than 5%, and even in some countries is going down to 2%. So definitely France is losing grip on African countries. So that's why French President Mr. Macron is now trying to go into Africa. It's not just try to build up a new relationship. He wants to propose a new deal. According to him, he wants to propose a new deal to African countries. He wants to, to change the way of doing things in Africa, and he also wants to polish the image of France in Africa. But will that be possible? That is a billion-dollar question we are asking.
That is a question. And now, Edmond, talking about anti-French sentiments in some African countries, can the visit of Emmanuel Macron to Africa be considered as compensatory or a reconciliatory visit?
That is if you want to follow what are his proposals, go back to the speech he delivered before. That's I think 2 or 3 days before he delivered his speech, and he's trying to underline some, according to him, what appear as the key element that actually help in developing this anti-French sentiment in Africa. He was talking about the arrogance of some companies some French guys in Africa. He also mentioned the fact that some French companies in Africa were doing a very bad job. They were not really professional in doing their job. And he also pointed fingers on the propaganda of Russia, which to me is not really true, because what French has to understand is that the anti-French sentiment that is being developed in Africa is the result of many years of frustration that Africans have been receiving from the relationship in between France and African countries, and especially their support to a certain leadership in Africa, what we call dictatorship in Africa. They have been supporting a lot of dictatorship in Africa. If you take the case of Chad, where you had a president who was installed by French in 1990. He was an army guy, and he was supported by France. But if you go now to Mali, they have been doing everything, to see the government of the Malian government, which to them is a military government. They want it to collapse. So is this kind of contradiction in the practice of French policy in Africa that is people do not want to accept that.
Now, Edmond Kurti, what can account for some of the reasons behind this anti-French sentiment in some African countries in which France is their colonial or was their colonial master? Why do most of these countries want France to stay clear of their country's affairs?
If you go back, you will see that what really push Africans to where they are today, you got two key elements that really push Africans. You got the Ivory Coast problems in 2010, where French army decided to go and bombed the presidency of Ivory Coast and then quit Mr. Gbagbo, take him to prison, and then install Mr. Ouattara, and you realize that what they were doing that for the sake of democracy. But the same guy they installed there, you see what he did for the third mandate, and French still supported him. So this type of behavior, Africans do not want that anymore. And the second key element is Mr. Gaddafi in Libya, where Mr. Sarkozy is the same president who actually installed Mr. Ouattara in Ivory Coast, where he decided to kill Mr. Gaddafi very brutally and violently. And I think African people did not accept that. And since then, there have been this sentiment that has been growing up in the heart of African, that France is not longer a good partner. So that's what they do not want to accept. Today they want to lay blame on Russia, saying that Russia is spraying a propaganda, destroying the image of France, but which is not true. What is actually happening in Africa today is as the result of a lot of frustrations. The type of behavior that France has been developing in Africa has not helped to polish their image. Instead, it has tarnished their image, and it has give back a very bad sentiment, a very bad image to Africa. And today what they are asking is that they just want to cut the relationship definitely with France.
Okay. And now, talking about the appointment of an artist, a Cameroonian, we are talking about Blik Bassi, to somehow rewrite the history of Cameroon in relation to France during the colonial era. Why him? Why an artist, according to you, Edmond? And why does that seem not to be sitting well with most Cameroonians?
You see, you just mentioned something very terrible. If you see what is going on, I don't want to come back to history, but if you see what is going on, actually, Cameroon has been accusing France for committing a genocide in the West. It's the western part of the country, and many African countries have been accusing France for stealing a lot of things, from Africa. But what's happened is that France is the guilty, is the suspect, is the criminal here, But he decides when he's going to give you back what he stole from you, when he's going to give you back. And now when he's been accused of genocide in Africa, he decides who he's going to appoint in Africa to open the memory of, to open the archives, to go back to the memory and see what's happened. He appoint somebody with a history background in France, but here in Africa he decided to appoint, in Cameroon he decided to appoint musicians. Do you see the hypocrisy of France? That means definitely they do not want the history to be to be revealed. Because why don't you ask Cameroonian to choose who has the real background actually to look into this problem? Why? You decide to appoint, you are the criminal, and we want to kind of assess your crimes in Cameroon, but you are the one to appoint who is the most suitable person to look into it in Cameroon. It's not good, and it's all this type of behaviors that Cameroon is very arrogant, is and manipulative too, because definitely just from that you will understand that actually they just want to fulfill some formalities and say, okay, we opened the history, we went back, and then they do not want the truth to be revealed. They do not want to face their responsibilities, definitely. So with this type of behavior, definitely African will understand that France is not a good partner to be dealing with.
And now, Edmond, is it possible for France to actually cleanse its image after all the atrocities caused in most African countries?
Is it possible for France today to clean their image? Definitely no. I'm afraid it might be too late. Too late because, first of all, they do not want to recognize the crime they have committed in Africa. You know, today, instead of saying that, okay, in the past we have not been behaving well, they want to accuse Russia. It's kind of saying Africans, they do not have the conscience to actually feel what they have been, you know, the crime they have been committing against them. It's like Africans are animals. They cannot think by themselves. They need Russia to come and tell them that France is not good. Meanwhile, Africans have been the ones suffering, you know, the crimes of France in Africa. But they don't want to recognize the fact. They don't want to acknowledge the fact they are accusing Russia. So definitely, I'm afraid they are using the very bad techniques. Their method is not good. So definitely, they cannot really, you know, it's too late. Not only it is too late, but also the method they are using is not a good one. And if you see, when he announced his arrival in 4 countries, go to all these countries. In DRC, for instance, people were already in the street saying that they do not want to receive Mr. Macron in their country. So you understand that it's too late, because young people in Africa today, things are very open. It's not like in the dark days where, you know, you could commit some crimes and then go away, go free without anybody being aware. Today, the world is very open and people are aware of everything's going on. So you realize what they have been doing in DRC Congo with Kagame. All the young guys in Congo are aware of it. So that's why they went down to the street to march and protest against the visit of Macron in their country. And all over is the same. So nobody even want to welcome him. So it's like they are telling him, please, don't even come. So if they are already at this stage, do you think it is possible, even if Macron arrived there, do you think he would, what type of speech do you think he can deliver to bring back this guy to normal sentiment? I think it's too late. France has to maybe try another strategy. I don't know what strategy they are going to use actually to gain back this love in the heart of Africans. I don't think it is even feasible, it is doable, because it is many years of frustrations, many years of spoliations, many years of manipulations that actually France has been doing in Africa. So I'm afraid it's difficult to clean the heart of Africans to accept back France as a good partner again.
And now, my last question, Edmond. There above, you mentioned Kagame. We know that now we already know, it's no news that most countries in Africa have been resenting France somehow, and even resenting even their language, which is their official language, which is French. We know that in Rwanda, which used to be a French-speaking country, now is principally an English-speaking country. Is that possible in our context, our Cameroonian context? Than French-speaking countries?
Exactly. It's not only Rwanda that has decided to change. If Malian government in their new constitution also, they have cancelled French as their official language, and I think the same thing is going to happen in many countries very soon. I think so. In our context, Cameroon is an example. You see, if you see now, like 50% of parents are now directing their children to Anglo-Saxon background for their studies. So, if you realize what France did in Rwanda, for instance, they are accused of the genocide. They are the main accused person of the genocide that happened in Rwanda. I think that was 1994, where we had 1 million. It was like 1 million people that actually were brutally killed, violently killed, and France was behind this. And today, Macron has decided, Mr. Kagame has decided to cut everything with France, and then he has decided to go back to join the Commonwealth, and he said Francophonie is not longer. But believe me, France will never abandon, because if you see what they have been doing, they took a Rwandan lady to become the president of Francophonie. Yeah, that is just to, to try to, to gain the terrain again. And since they have been trying to support Kagame in what he's doing in DRC, they are closing their eyes. They are supporting him. They are giving him some means to attack DRC and to occupy a very huge, territory of DRC. And all this is causing another frustration again in DRC. That's why people do not want to see France in DRC. So actually, France is committing a lot of mistakes in Africa, and I think they are desperate. They are very desperate because, France depend on Africa. I mean, like 80%. Because if you see their energy, if they do not have uranium from Africa, definitely they will not have energy. If they do not exploit oil and gas from Africa, it will be difficult for them, because actually Total is one of the more oil exporter in the world, but France do not have a drop of oil in their subsoil, so definitely they depend on Africa. Most of the oil that France Total is being explored in Africa, in the world, is most part comes from Africa, Gabon, Congo, Cameroon, and most of these African countries. So France now is desperate. That's why they are accusing Russia to steal, the resources of Africa, and they are accusing Wagner that they have been committing crimes in Africa, as if we have to assess the crime of France in Africa since, centuries. It will be terrible what they did in Cameroon, what they did in Algeria, what they did in Central Africa, what they did all over Africa, even in Nigeria with the Biafra war. It was still France. So actually they are accusing Russia of committing crimes and stealing resources from Africa, I think simply because they are desperate. Like I said, today they are not controlling the markets of Africa anymore. They used to control 40% of the market in Cameroon. Today they are under 10%. They used to control a lot of things in Africa. Today, you have India, you got China, you got Turkish, you got even Germany. They are the one controlling most of the markets in Africa today. So you see, France is like desperate, and I understand why they are barking like a dog, simply because they realize that other people are now benefiting from what used to be their gift yesterday. But today, other people like China is benefiting from it, and China does not need to frustrate people in Africa. They are in a kind of give deal, win-win deal. If you give me something, I give you something, and people are very happy with that. So France, if at all they want to regain the heart of African, I don't think if it is possible, but at least if they want it possible, they have to change the strategy. They have to be more open and less hypocrite, because they're actually hypocrites. They are supporting dictatorship in Africa. You saw what happened recently in Chad when Idriss Déby died. Macron himself came to install his son, violating the constitution that actually foresaw that the next president, if in case of absence of the president, is the president of National Assembly that's going to take control. But in violation to all this disposition of the constitution, Mr. Macron himself came to install the son of Déby in power. So all these Africans are not stupid. They are watching this, they are seeing it, and they realize that France is trying to play a very nasty game just to preserve their interest. And today, Africans are no longer to accept this anymore. That's why the last cry of Africans is to tell France, away with your military bases in Africa. We do not want your military bases in Africa anymore, and we do not want your currency, your CFA currency anymore. These are the two main things that Africans are telling France to do. Away with your military bases, and away with your CFA currency.
Thank you so much, Edmond Kiate, for accepting to be our guest on Talking Point tonight, and hope to have you some other time. Viewers, thank you so much for being with us on Equinoxe Television. Enjoy the rest of your evening in the company of our programs. Bye-bye for now.
Equinoxe Télévision, au-delà de l'image, nous rendons compte.
If you suspect you may have a coronavirus infection, please call your healthcare provider in advance and let them know you are coming. This can help them be prepared. WHO recommends preventive measures to reduce your risk. Wash your hands frequently using soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth. Avoid eating raw meat and unnecessary contact with wild animals. Avoid close contact with anyone with flu-like symptoms. When coughing and sneezing, cover your mouth and nose with a flexed elbow. Or use a tissue. Take particular precaution while traveling. Seek medical care early.
De lundi à vendredi sur Equinoxe Télévision.
La vie est de plus en plus chère à Yaoundé et Douala.
Si vous prenez les safous que nous appelons vulgairement les prunes, les prix ont chuté.
Il aurait vu, il aurait demandé, il aurait dit essayez de répercuter cela un peu dans le Cameroun pour voir ce que ça donne. On ne serait pas aujourd'hui à parler du problème de blé.
Est-ce que vous avez pour vous une explication à cela?
On a tout ce qu'il faut. Maintenant, comment faire? Il faut des décisions fortes. Je vais rejoindre l'analyse de mon guide qui pense que c'est une théorie de complot et une provocation même de l'inflation.
C'est quand vous êtes en santé que l'État économise pour ne plus dépenser sur la santé aussi.
Ça se poursuit demain à partir de 19h. Bonsoir, Ngoumou.
7 conseils pour se protéger contre le nouveau coronavirus. 1. Lavez-vous régulièrement les mains à l'eau et au savon ou à l'aide d'un gel hydroalcoolique. 2. Vous ressentez l'envie de tousser ou d'éternuer? Faites-le dans un mouchoir ou dans le creux de votre coude, puis lavez-vous les mains. 3. Restez à au moins 1 mètre de distance des autres personnes, surtout si elles toussent, éternuent ou ont de la fièvre. 4. Évitez de vous toucher les yeux, le nez et la bouche. 5. Évitez tout contact direct avec des animaux vivants. Et si cela est impossible, veillez à vous laver les mains après le contact. 6. Ne mangez pas de produits animaux crus ou mal cuits et lavez-vous les mains. Nettoyez les surfaces et les ustensiles après usage. 7. Si vous avez de la fièvre, de la toux ou des difficultés à respirer, consultez un médecin.
He's a breakdancer in Monrovia's Painesville neighborhood. Thanks to the help of Isaac Peters, T1 is now about to go to school. I was always trying to find a way to go to school, and luckily I met him. He told me he could help me start school, and he encouraged me with my dancing. He said I should dance at school to motivate my friends outside who are not educated to attend school. Isaac Peters set up this high school after Liberia's civil war to educate street children. But he's been struggling to keep the school up and running. Financial problems mean it's hard to maintain the buildings. There are about 20 teachers for nearly 2,000 children, but only half of the pupils pay fees. Others, like Victor, rely on Isaac's scholarship program, co-financed by the other children. Isaac Peters spent part of his own childhood on the streets.
Living the streets as a child at a time enabled me to secure a good future. And securing a good future is one thing, but it's also helped me to impact the lives of other people. And the street life also gave me an idea on how it looked like to be out there sleeping on the market tables.
After classes, Isaac often heads to the local cemetery where his runaway son Cyrus hangs out.
I feel that I'm obligated to him to transform his life, fund the grave to someone who will make a difference in life.
Cyrus used to live with Isaac, but then he started stealing and turned violent.
The passion that I have to help many of our children, especially war-affected children and children from the ghetto, I go into the graveyard and take these children from there.
Isaac couldn't find Cyrus today, so he talks to the other boys.
If you want to become a mechanic, we can strike the deal. If you want to become a carpenter, we can strike the deal. If you want to become a plumber, we can strike the deal. Let's meet.
At night, Monrovia is a vibrant city. It's the first time in a long time that Isaac Peters has been able to check out some of the city's clubs. Victor Brown, aka T1, is performing tonight at a dance club where many of Monrovia's street kids go to blow off steam. Some also come here to convince other people to join Isaac Peters High School. But for now, Isaac insists T1 should just concentrate on entertaining his fans.
Even TV newsrooms sometimes struggle to sort out facts from fiction. South African news anchor Iman Rapet weapon on the net.
An agency like this helps to trace things backwards, and even if they reach a point of no conclusion, it allows us to say, we need to think about where we get our information from and how we use it.
Aneem van Vick works for the non-profit organization Africa Check in Johannesburg. She and her team research the credibility of politicians' public statements. They've earned a reputation for the thoroughness of their work and for their unbiased independence.
We try our best to be seen as a credible and independent and non-partisan organisation by making best use of the best sources and also being transparent in the way we write up our reports, and then over time to check all sides of the debate and all political parties so that people don't think we're anti the government or anti opposition parties or anti anybody. We're just interested in the facts.
Aneem and her fellow campaigners work in 5 countries. Africa Check is funded by several independent institutions and foundations that support factual and independent journalism. The work isn't always easy.
We are